guest speaker for tonight's meeting is Scott Falgout.
Good.
Goot. I knew I'd screw it up. Falgout. All right, his topic for the evening will be the Battle of Sabine Pass.
Sabine.
Sabine?
Sabine.
Or not to Sabine.
He's a Methodist. Listen to this, and I got this right. He is a Methodist minister at 3 local churches in and around Ripley. And he's a friend of mine. I've been knowing him for 2 or 3 years. I didn't know he could speak.
You didn't know his last name either, did you?
No, but I did a little research on this Sabine
There you go.
Pass. And it did exist, so he's not going to lie to us tonight. All right, come on up, Scott. He's also Robert Jackson. Y'all, most of you know him. He's his stepdaddy-in-law.
Stepdaddy.
Stepdaddy.
I give up. Thank you, sir.
Normally I thank the person who introduces me, but tonight I'll just stop that. You know, let me tell you a little story about Bill.
Uh-oh.
I'll get started. His pastor was talking to me the other day. He said, "Bill, do you think about the hereafter?" Bill says, "Sure do, Pastor. Think about it every day, no matter where I'm at. If I'm in the kitchen, I'm thinking about the hereafter. If I'm in the living room, watching TV, think about the hereafter. We go out in the garage and work a little bit, think about the hereafter." Pastor said, "Well, that's good. I'm glad you do that." He says, "Yeah." He says, "When I walk in the room, I go, what am I hereafter?"
Oh, me.
I'll leave you alone now, Bill.
Thank you very much. I can do my own damage.
You don't need no help.
I don't need any help.
Thank y'all for letting me speak tonight. I'm originally from Port Arthur, Texas, and Sabine Pass is about 28 miles from Port Arthur, Texas. It's right there on the Gulf Coast on the Texas-Louisiana border. And every year they commemorate the Battle of Sabine Pass. And growing up, we used to go out there and watch them recreate the battle and give a little history on it. So I am a member of a history book club and got this book, War on the Waters, the Union and Confederate Navy from 1861 to 1865. And Robert was telling me about the Sons of the Confederate and how y'all really dig into the history of it. I got interested in it because I'm also retired Navy. I spent 23 years in the Navy. And I said, well, you always hear about the battles, but you don't hear too much about the naval battles and what went on with the Confederate and Union Navy. So that's what I like to look up. The Battle of Sabine Pass, when you hear about it, you hear about the Confederate victory. Well, that's actually the second battle of the Battle of Sabine Pass. There was a first one, which happened in September 24th and 25th, 1862. And the Confederates had the control of the fort there at Sabine Pass. The Union Army came up and landed, did what you might call an amphibious landing, and overran the fort The commander of the fort at this time was J.S. Irvin, and he was so overwhelmed by the charge of the Union Army that he abandoned the fort, and they took it without much of a battle. The Union Army held it for a few months, and then they abandoned it. And a few months after that, the Confederates took it back over. The Union Navy had 2 schooners that landed the troops there at Sabine Pass. And as I said, it didn't take long, and there wasn't much of a battle, so that's why you don't hear about it. The second one, and most important one, was one, as I said, by the Confederate Army. The Fort Sabine was being, the commander was Richard W. Dowling, and he was of Irish descent, living in Houston, Texas, which is about 90 miles northeast of the Sabine Pass and Port Arthur area. He was a lieutenant in charge of it. The fort had 4 guns, and for a person who didn't have any military training, he was very astute in military strategy. Because what he did, well, let me give you a little background on the Sabine Pass itself. It's a channel that has a oyster bed in the middle of it, so it gives you two channels that you can come through, one going along the Louisiana border, one going across the Texas border. And what Dick Dowling did after he took command of the fort was had these long poles painted white and stuck them in various areas in the channel, in both channels. And then he would train, have drills with the men firing and setting the cannon's altitude and range for each cannon. When Union Army had taken Vicksburg, the next step was to invade Texas and take control of Fort Sabine. It just so happened that David Farragut, the commander of the Navy of the Gulf, Union Navy of the Gulf, and David Farragut went on to be a very famous U.S. naval officer. He was the first admiral U.S. Navy had, first vice admiral, first rear admiral that the Navy had, and he was very good at naval strategy. Farragut happened to be visiting Wells at the Naval Department when they learned about the plan of the attack. The admiral predicted failure. He was quoted as saying, "The Army officers have an impression that the Navy vessels can do anything. They would accept the gunboats, they expect the gunboats to silence the battery so that they could walk ashore." Farragut said that they should, as they did in the first battle of Sabine Pass, land the troops down from the fort and have them come up for a rear attack. But that's not what the plan was. They had the gunboats that the Union had were converted river steamboats, and they were in very poor condition and was in need of repair daily. On the afternoon of September 8, 1863, Navy Lieutenant Frederick Crocker, the acting captain, was in command of the advanced squadron of 4 gunboats. Crocker was a veteran officer and considerable recent experience in the Union River gunboats and blockade duty. And what their plan was with the 4 gunboats that they had was to race 2 of them down each channel, drawing the fire from the fort, while the other 2 came up and landed the troops. But due to Dick Dowling's constant training of the battery there at the fort, when the first 2 came up, the fort fired on the first one, the lead one, and made a direct hit on its boiler, which crippled it. The second one also hit in the engine room area and crippled it. After seeing the first 2 gunboats being crippled, the others decided to retreat.
Smart move.
The casualties from that attack was 200 killed, wounded, or captured, and 2 gunboats sank. The Confederates sustained no casualties at all.
Yay.
Now, for a person who had no military training, was a owner of a couple of bars in Houston, Texas, Dick Dowling did an outstanding job in defending the Texas coast from the Union Navy, keeping the Union Army out of Texas. In doing so, he was promoted, and I found this to be pretty amazing. He was promoted by Jefferson Davis from lieutenant to major, which I think is a pretty good jump. Had the Union Army been successful, they would have had control of the whole western coast, Gulf Coast of the United States, or the Confederate States, and could have kept any supplies from reaching the Confederate Army. But by driving them back at Sabine Pass, we still had a foothold for supply ships to come in and bring food, ammunition, and other material that needed for the Confederate cause. As I said, every year they celebrate the Battle of Sabine Pass. It's a pretty, I always thought it was pretty awesome with the reenactors and stuff that they have there. To give you, also to give you some more information, the troops that they had, the Union Army had to land was 5,000 infantry, standing by to invade Texas. but Dick Dowling held him back. Another point on the first Battle of Sabine Pass, it was the first ever recorded firing of a Union naval ship against a Confederate fort. And that took place in September 24th, 1862. Being a Navy veteran, it always interests me to read about battles that took place in the rivers and then the Gulf and along the coast. And the 4 gunboats that the Union Army had, as I said, were converted river boats. Kind of gave you, the idea that yes, they had a powerful navy that could put a blockade around the southern states, but they didn't have anything capable of making landings or amphibious attacks. Now the Battle of Vicksburg was a different story because, as I said, Farragut was in charge of that. He was a great naval strategist and was able to win the victory there. But again, I'm honored and thank y'all for letting me tell you a little bit about the Battle of Sabine Pass. And if you have any more questions or anything, I'll be glad to answer them.
How many Confederate troops were defending Sabine Pass at the time?
We had 36 infantry. 36 infantry.
You kidding me?
So,
And 4 guns.
4 guns.
Hey, Scott, I found something interesting. The Davis Guards had fired their cannon 107 times in 35 minutes of action. Can y'all imagine that? Cannon.
That's what makes it so amazing that, as I said, a saloon owner with no military background had the forethought to put those sticks up there to get firing ranges and constantly drill his men on artillery firing to keep the gunboats, even though the gunboats weren't in that great shape, it still was able to get direct hits on them.
Good deal.
Bar owner and 36 good old boys. I'm talking about what we got in here right now. Hey, let's go.
And they were, the Davis Guard, which Dick Dowling was in charge of, before the Civil War, was the Texas Irish Brigade, made up of Irishmen like Dick Dowling. And before the war, they were more of a, what you might call a drinking club.
Just like what you got here.
And once the war started, they were made the Texas Guard. And I guess they thought they better get serious. But you know anything about Irish? They like a good fight and they don't give up easily.
Good deal.
So again, I thank y'all. And,